So, you want to run Linux and also be a content creator on platforms like Twitch and YouTube, but you've been told by other people that that's just not viable. Well, it just so happens I know a guy who knows a guy that has created at least 4 videos, 10 short form videos, and done roughly 20 streams on Torvald's golden child, Arch Linux. And no, it's not John Bringus. He just installs Linux on PS4s and rack mount servers. It's me. I've been running a form of Arch for the entirety of my career, starting with Manjaro until it gave me the finger and ruined a bunch of stuff on my computer. So, I swapped over to pure Arch and have been running that ever since, which has been amazing. I've done a lot on Linux, from gaming, art, video editing, thumbnails, streaming, and much more. We're going to focus more on those last 3, and before I go any further, there is an alternative to all of this. If you're new or you have a software that you already pay for that doesn't natively run on Linux or doesn't have a Linux version, there are ways to get those running via a compatibility layer like Wine. However, sometimes people don't want to deal with that, and that can be incredibly frustrating and just all sorts of difficult. But dual booting or having an entirely separate machine for editing is definitely a way to go, and a lot of creators who run Linux will do this for one reason or another. But if you want to go all out, there are options for those of us running purely Linux and nothing else. First, let's talk about video editing with Kdenlive. So first off, we have Kdenlive. Kdenlive is where I do all my video editing. It's pretty solid. It has a lot of good features. It's pretty feature full, if I had to come up with a word that I'm pretty sure exists. Do I use all those features? Absolutely not. I have no idea how to video edit it, if you couldn't tell from some of my previous videos. But I know how to use it well enough to create the effects that I want. It comes with a lot of effects, audio and video, just out of the box, which is really nice, and you can stack them together and save those stacks to create things like my VHS filter that I did in my Palworld video, or the dream effect that I did in my last video, which was about the Surface Pro. So there are ways to combine these effects to get things you want to see in the video, make funny noises, special effects happen. And there's probably a lot more that I haven't played around with yet, but I'm not going to explore all of them just one by one. It's something that I kind of think of in my head, oh, I would like to have this bit in my video, and then I go and see if someone has already created a tutorial on how to do it, and if not, then I just start playing around with things until I figure it out. But it is very much possible, and you can make somewhat decently edited videos for a YouTube channel. Actually, this will be my first time doing a screen recorded section, so let me get that set up real quick. All right, ignore the black bar at the top. I don't know quite why it's not reaching the full height, but we're just going to ignore that for right now. This here is my Kdenlive. So you'll notice what is now my right-hand side. This is the preview window of what's going on in the project. What's underneath me, and what is now to the left of me, is where you can preview clips that you are currently looking at. So if I just go to videos, I can preview this clip right here. Or I can play, oh, never mind, you can't hear any of that audio. Actually, let me get that track in here so you can hear a little bit of this. If you want to see more content like this in the future, drop a like, subscribe, comment down below if this is something that you want to see more of. I intend on potentially doing more of these types of videos, but also more of the putting Linux on funny things that John Bringus has kind of popularized. Also Action Retro. I think that's the correct channel name. Yeah, Action Retro. I kind of like that sort of content. I want to make more of that myself. Definitely more on the gaming side of things though, like what can you game on when Linux is involved, which, like I said, leaning more towards John Bringus's type of thing. All right. I've gone ahead and I've split this up into a secondary track, which is something you can do with OBS, and we'll talk about that later. But here, you should now be hearing... Let's see what the mail brought us today. Hopefully it's not anthrax again. You should be hearing my video, which is playing underneath me. Not very helpful. But you can preview your video as it goes along the timeline. But let's just take a look at some of the things that I did for this video. I'm actually going to mute myself, or at least turn myself down. So we've got images, we've got freezes, and this is the VHS effect that I was talking about. It does look a little slow when we're loading it through here. I think it's just because of the sheer number of effects that we have applied onto it. But in the video itself, it doesn't look quite as slow. So this is very rudimentary in terms of the effects that you can do. Say the VHS effect is probably one of the more complicated but also more impressive ones that I ended up doing. But there are a lot of, you can see that there are a lot of splits. And this was way before I learned that you can actually record audio inside of Kdenlive. So we've got video tracks, we've got audio tracks, you've even got audio recording tracks and AV tracks. So AV, I believe, just adds one audio, one video. But audio recording tracks lets you hit the record button and just record as you're going through the track, which is really helpful if you do a lot more voiceover content. And then from there, you can go ahead, go into your audio effects. Maybe you need a compressor, or maybe you need to fix the levels or add some gain, remove some gain. There are a lot of different audio, video filters. The video filters have these boxes around them, whereas the audio filters are circles. You can see your clip properties, your undo history. There's so much that you can do. You can UV map. I've done some green screen work with a video I did for school where I chroma keyed out the green screen on a transition that I got from YouTube, so I could use it as our transition for like a news type of thing. So normally you'll start out in logging, where you'll just add your videos and stuff, drag them over here. You can see I kind of have this laid out in a good way. It still needs some work. You can also do this from editing. You can just go to your files and drag and drop into the sequences right here. And that's generally what I end up doing anyways. This is where almost all of my work is done. I don't really do work outside of this. You do have one specific to audio, really just moves the audio mixer over here, and then it also gives you the audio spectrum if that's something that you are interested in or you know a little bit more about. I know nothing about audio. I'm really just kind of winging this here, trying to make sure that everything just sounds as nice as I can possibly make it. But from there, you can also go to your effects. This is more, the effects composition of these things. And again, I do this all through editing. I think it's a pretty solid time to just do it all through editing, but if you think you need a dedicated spot to do it, then it is something that's offered. And then color correction. Color correction is not something I understand by any means necessary. So this is for a more skilled user than I am, but it is here if you need it, if you use it often. Am I going to recommend this to someone who's doing video work on the next Jurassic Park maybe? No, probably not. But I think for content creators that are looking to just get started and they need something that's free and open source, this is for you. And also this runs on both Windows and Mac. I'll put a thing up, but yeah, no, this runs on Windows, Linux, and Mac. It runs on Apple Silicon, and it doesn't say anything about ARM for Windows, so it might not quite run on it yet, but it does run on all the Apple devices, whether it's Intel or one of the M chips. So to cap off Kdenlive, Kdenlive is really good if you're just looking for something free, but still pretty powerful to just get you started with video editing. Obviously, if you're on Mac or Windows, there are other tools that you could use. The one that I used to use when I was on Windows was DaVinci Resolve, and technically you can get that running on Linux. I just haven't had any good luck trying to get it to work. That might just be a me issue, but that is also something that you could give a try, and if it works for you, it works for you. But again, Kdenlive's free, it's open source, and it runs on all the operating systems. Even if you're not one of my Linux users here, it's still, I think, a really good choice to just get you started. Next we have is GIMP. Now, honestly, I'm not the largest fan of GIMP, but it lets me do what I need to do, and I haven't currently found a good alternative for it. So I'm just kind of rocking with it for the time being. It gives me layers, it gives me channels, it lets me do all my thumbnail editing, and sometimes it lets me create funny things with it, like some of the videos that you saw in the Surface Pro video where me and John Bringus were looking at each other, or the thumbnail for that video, and the thumbnail for usually all my videos is created in GIMP somehow. It's pretty simple to use. Like I said, it does have a lot of tools that you can use. The one thing I do like about it is the Smart Scissor tool, which I've heard is pretty comparable to the AI tool that Adobe Photoshop, I think, or maybe it's Adobe Premiere, has started using recently. But this feature has been around in GIMP longer than the AI tool has on the Adobe side. But it is really useful, especially when you don't want to go and painstakingly like erase around the edges of something. And it does a really good job usually, especially if what you're trying to cut around has a pretty defined background behind it and the two are differing enough colors. But I really enjoy it for that feature alone. Everything else is kind of... Some of the ways it does effects is weird, like when I try and add a drop shadow to text, I can't edit that text afterwards, or else the drop shadow removes, and I really kind of hate that. But it's something I'm gonna work with for right now until I can find a good alternative. We're gonna take a break from thumbnail editing. Next is, how do I write my scripts, get my notes? The answer used to be LibreOffice. I used to do all my stuff on LibreOffice, all my notes, all that, and it works great. It's amazing. It's basically just Microsoft Word, but free and open source. That was until I had a lot of time, or there were a lot of times where I'd be out and I can't really access LibreOffice on my desktop from my phone. So I started using Google Docs because I already have to have a Google account in order to have this YouTube channel. So I figured that my best option would just be to do it all on Google Docs. And it's not that I don't want to switch out, I really do. I know Nextcloud offers a word processor in its family of things that you can do with Nextcloud. I'm just kind of too stupid to set it up on my home server because I've tried it a handful of times and I still can't get that shit to run. Even I tried a Docker container and that was still screwing me over. Google Docs works great. It's got an Android app that I use pretty often when I'm not at my computer just to jot down things that I'm thinking about. Maybe it's an idea I have and I'm not at my PC and I just rather throw open a Google Doc and toss it in there so that I can go to my desktop later and workshop it, see how I feel about it, things of that nature. I'm more than willing to move away from it if possible. It's just a matter of finding something that works as good as the Google Doc app on Android that also works well on the web portion of it. So if you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm more than open to trying and adding more things to my tech stack, my content creation stack, I guess. OBS. It's the de facto streaming and recording software on any of the operating systems. I know if you're on Windows or Mac, you have Streamlabs that you could potentially choose to use instead. There are probably other streaming and video recording applications, but OBS is free and open source, and everyone from new creators to experienced and seasoned creators use it and use it very well. So I wouldn't see a reason to use anything but that, unless there's some sort of functionality that you don't get from the base experience of OBS. But on that end, you can also use plugins. There are people who develop plugins for OBS. I even have to use one to do audio capture on Linux. Okay, it is the OBS Pipewire audio capture, and I will link that in the description below for those of you who are also looking and realizing, hey, the Linux version of the binary doesn't allow me to capture audio from specific windows. It just gives me desktop audio, and that sucks. It works flawlessly. I have no complaints whatsoever. And they still actively work on that plugin. I think every time there's a new version of OBS, they build a new version of the plugin because there's always a chance that it breaks. So they just recommend you, update it every time you update OBS. But really don't have many complaints on the OBS side of things. There are some complaints I have with the streaming bits, mainly that if you get OBS from Pac-Man versus the flat pack. Pac-Man, you don't get the bars on the side, for Twitch when you're streaming. You don't get chat on this side, and you don't get the stream details on the other side, and there's no way to add custom browser sources on the Pac-Man side of things. So I do use the Flatpak version, which I would rather not if I could avoid it, but I can't. I mean, I could do without those features, but I really like having them there when I run back to OBS to do something. Before I knew that Kdenlive offered the ability to record audio in the application itself. If you know what Audacity is, Tenacity is just the Linux open source version of it, if I remember correctly. I think Audacity is already free. Yeah, I don't know if Audacity is free and open source. I tend to shoot for Tenacity, and the two are basically identical. Like, I used Audacity on Windows, and Tenacity is damn near the same thing. I don't know, like, I don't notice any differences between the two, and they both do exactly what I need them to do, which is record voiceover, like I said, when I used it to do that. Sometimes I'll use it to cut down audio clips when I just need a specific portion, maybe for a sound effect, maybe for something else. The noise suppression on that is really good. I don't know what algorithm they use, but it has worked me wonders, especially when I had the much shittier mic. If you guys watch my first two videos, I used that pretty religiously to get rid of some of the fuzz in the background, and it did pretty well, as far as I can tell. Would I still love to re-record those? Absolutely. But for what it was and what it did at the time, it was pretty great. But now that I know that I can record my audio on Kdenlive and also add filters through there, I might not use Tenacity too much anymore, but it's still good to have just in your mind if it's something where, oh, you know, I just want to clip out certain portions of this audio, but I don't want to throw it all in Kdenlive and do it there. I'd rather do it outside and just export it so I get one clean, nice audio file. But in terms of what I use to create content, that really is about it. And my content seems to be doing pretty well, in my opinion. And I figured this would be a good video for others down the line who are looking to do this sort of thing, but also run Linux. If you don't want to dual boot Windows, I still do, but it's really for like 2 games. And one of them is Black Ops 6. That's not to say that I haven't thought about video editing on Windows. In fact, I think one of these future videos will be me trying out Vegas Pro 21 because there's a nice bundle on Humble Bundle right now that I'm probably going to pick up. But I just kind of want to see what the differences are and how much of a difference it makes editing using Kdenlive, which I know good enough, I know well enough on here, rather than starting fresh with something that has probably a million tutorials, millions of effects to choose from, things like that. I believe that one also has some AI bullshit, but I don't intend on really using that because I'd rather this be a more natural conversation between you guys and myself. That's how I feel about it. Not to say that I don't use AI occasionally. In fact, the subtitles are generated by Whisper, which is something that Jeff Geerling recommended on his second YouTube channel. And honestly, it's been a godsend because I've probably mentioned this in the past, but I use subtitles a lot. And it's not, like, I'm not hard of hearing, but sometimes I just don't understand what someone's saying, and having the subtitles is nice to have in my, like, peripheral vision. But that's gonna do it for this video. This wasn't what I was expecting to put out. I had something fully recorded. It was gonna be like an hour long. This one will definitely be longer since it's a lot looser. There was no script. In fact, I'll even show you my notes. I'll put them in probably right about here on what I had. And I wanted to try this because a lot of you were saying that this feel like, especially with having my face in content now, this feels a lot more natural, a lot more personal. And even though this is going to be a bitch to edit because of all the and the uhs and the ums and all that, I think that this might be the way to go from now on. This was a lot simpler of a video because these are things that I've been using for a while and have just opinions on. But we'll see. I'll see how this goes. But take care, guys, and I will see you all next time.